The RMS St Helena, the last Royal Mail ship in Her Majesty's service, calls at 3 islands in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean: Ascension, St Helena and Tristan Da Cunha. They're not easy to find on the chart, but the officers of the RMS St Helena know exactly where they're going. Georgetown, Ascension Island, the mail ship's first port of call heading southward. With its many craters and covered in lava, it feels a bit like having landed on the moon. Jamestown, capital of St Helena, the main island of the British Crown colony. The settlement nestles in a long gorge between steep volcanic slopes. Napoleon Bonaparte spent his ultimate years in exile on this lush and verdant island. Tristan Da Cunha, officially the remotest inhabited island in the world. Some 300 people call this volcanic cone their home. The weather can be quite treacherous, even for the Royal Mail ship. Our story begins in Weymouth, Dorset, in the south of England, one of Britain's oldest seaside resorts. Elegant Georgian terraces and hotels look across Walvis Bay. Yeah, the colourful fishing boats and old seamen's inns in the narrow lane of the old town give us our first taste of the ocean and sense of anticipation for the voyage to come. A few miles further south is the Isle of Portland, where the Royal Mail ship St Helena starts her tour of duty to the islands of the South Atlantic Ocean. But first and foremost, all these parcels, boxes and appliances need to be loaded onto the ship. After all, her main purpose is to supply the islanders, especially those on St Helena, with everything that's needed to survive so far away from Mother Britain. Including man's best friend, Finn, the young golden retriever is looking forward to his new home on Ascension Island. At least the weather is said to be more favourable there. The 72 passengers who are booked on this journey are getting ready. The time has come to say farewell. When will we meet again? Most of the passengers are saints, which is how the people of St Helena call themselves. They're British, with forefathers who've descended from some of the remotest corners of the British Empire. They're on their way home from the mother country. For most of them, the mail ship is the only means to get there, a lifeline for the saints, and a home from home.
Now, good day to you. There we are, dear old cat. Welcome on board.
Anchors away. Farewell, Britannia. After heavy seas in the Bay of Biscay, we soon reach milder climates, and the 12 days at sea to Ascension are no hardship. For most of the passengers, it's not the first voyage on board the RMS, as the saints call their ship affectionately. It is, after all, the only ship that calls at their island regularly. Since we're far off busy shipping routes, dolphins are our only companions. Gone are the times, as in the 19th century, when the long voyage to St Helena could be a dangerous adventure. Nowadays it's a luxurious experience, and after a short while on board, the new faces have become quite familiar. Finn has also found a new friend to pass away the hours on the foredeck with. Time for a little cricket match. Officers versus passengers, competing for the South Atlantic Curry Cup. The rules are slightly modified, of course. The rolling of the vessel makes things even more entertaining, and many a ball's lost to Neptune. Passengers win. They probably had more time to practice. After all, the officers have a ship to run. Captain Rodney Young is a saint himself. He's proud of his rather unique, multi-purpose ship, which belongs to the government of St Helena and is subsidised by the British government. He commands some 55 officers and crew, most of whom are saints and Britons.
We are running 2 ships. There is no doubt that from this bridge back, we're running a Class 1 passenger ship, and from the bridge forward, although it's still Class 1, she's a cargo ship, and in port we must load cargo. And then a few hours before sailing we switch to passenger ship mode and we're ready to receive our paying guests on board.
Intense activity down in the galley. 72 passengers and the ship's company to cater for. Breakfast, beef tea, lunch, afternoon tea and 5-course dinner. Every day a different menu. A challenge for any restaurant. Even more so on board the RMS, where there's no possibility to restock on the long voyage south. Meticulous planning is crucial. Different culinary preferences need to be taken care of.
The Saint Helena is an extension of the island. There's no doubt about that. They know the crew, they know the officers. Yes, the minute they come up the gangway, they're home. They're looking to see if they can smell curry or fish cakes, and it's part of the island. The ship is part of the island, very much so.
It's dinner time, and the Ocean Mail, the ship's daily newspaper, suggests mess dress for tonight. Despite the generally very relaxed atmosphere on board, this occasion requires a bit more social etiquette. After all, this is Her Majesty's Royal Mail ship, and the colonial spirit has not been entirely lost. Travelling to one of the last British overseas territories creates a certain feeling of nostalgia, which the guests seem to enjoy.
Once
Did you see the pirates part?
someone just put a black
That was quite
line
good. They all
in
enjoyed
line.
that.
A black line.
And the entertainment doesn't stop here. After dinner, the ship's company have some more excitement in store for their guests. It's cabaret night, and somehow the performers remind us of someone else.
Listen, and so she married this one. Ding dong, ding dong, ding ding dong.
Yes, it's the captain and members of the crew performing for the benefit of the passengers. It's not only the ship which has to fulfill several functions. The ship's company is obviously very versatile as well. Congratulations, but don't give up the day job.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
This is the officer of the watch speaking. This is to let you know that the vessel has now crossed over the equator into the southern hemisphere.
And we by then should not be here. So
The
forward
captain,
position
playing
with
King
posts
Neptune,
forward.
performs the crossing of the line ceremony. And although most of the passengers and crew have done the trip before, there are always some victims to be found. After crossing the equator, we're now drawing close to our first destination, Ascension, and everybody prepares to go ashore, some with less enthusiasm than others though. But Alan, who is also head waiter at the captain's table, knows how to get the best out of his protégé. After 12 days and nearly 3,700 miles at sea, Ascension finally appears on the horizon. Land ahoy! Since there's no harbour at Ascension, Captain Rodney Young anchors his vessel off Georgetown, and the passengers are ferried ashore by tenders. We're fortunate. The sea is not too rough today. It's not too much of a challenge. Everybody's looking forward to feeling solid ground beneath their feet for a change. The British Crown acquired Ascension in 1815 when Napoleon was exiled to the neighbouring island of St Helena. A small garrison was deployed here in order to prevent the French from rescuing their former emperor from imprisonment. For a long time, the British Admiralty used to refer to this island as HMS Ascension on their sea charts. Somehow, that's how it feels going ashore, like going aboard a huge battleship. The new arrivals are awaited eagerly. Finn's epic journey from Ireland to Ascension has finally come to an end. He'll have plenty of seaman's yarns to tell his big brother Paddy and new master Johnny Hobson. While for some the holidays have already started, the crew of the RMS are very busy loading containers and other cargo onto pontoons using the vessel's 2 cranes. It's an operation which requires precision and concentration. Timing is everything. The RMS has a tight schedule. Delays are not an option. The busy activity around the RMS is in stark contrast to the tranquility of Georgetown, the capital of Ascension Island. This dependency of St Helena has a population of some 1,000 people, although there are several other settlements on the island. Most of its infrastructure is situated here. Ascension is virtually a crime-free zone. The prison looks like a weekend retreat. No one at home during our stay. No rush for the mailbox today. The collection for St Helena finished yesterday. Curiously, there have never been any permanent inhabitants on Ascension. It's very much a working island, with mainly Saints, Britons and Americans employed on a temporary basis. In the past, employees who finished their contract were bound to leave. But this is in the process of change. With its 44 dormant volcanoes, Ascension Island's landscape is reminiscent of something out of a science fiction film. Looking at this vast moonscape, it doesn't come as any surprise that the Americans tested their vehicles here prior to their mission to the moon. This fueled various conspiracy theories that Apollo never actually landed on the moon, and that the whole event was staged on Ascension with the intention of fooling the world, especially the Soviet Union. The NASA station that tracked the legendary first mission to the moon is now deserted. It's believed that Neil Armstrong's famous first message to Mother Earth was received here. Even today, space technology is still very much at home on Ascension.
3, 2, unité, feu.
The majestic start of an Ariane 5 rocket launched from Kourou in French Guiana. The Ariane Earth station on Ascension is the first to monitor the course of the rocket, just minutes after its launch in South America.
Trajectoire nominale Ascension.
The Ariane Earth station on Ascension has the important task of tracking the rocket on its way over the South Atlantic Ocean, feeding back data to the European Space Agency in real time. Station Director Caroline Yon and her team are proud to look back on a spotless track record.
It's very critical because the whole point of the station is to provide uninterrupted telemetry feed, and there are no other stations that can do the cover in this area. So.
Ascension seems to provide the perfect growing conditions for aerials of every shape and size. They rise from the ground everywhere, like a beautiful, gigantic spider's web, transmitting eerie sounds along its outstretched arms. English Bay, with its sandy beaches and turquoise sea, is a perfect spot for sunbathing. The Atlantic currents can be very strong, though. It's also home to the Atlantic Relay Station of the BBC, helping to boost the signal of its World Service, formerly known as Imperial Service, to Africa and South America. The power plant, which was built to supply the BBC relay station, also provides electricity and desalinated water for the whole island. News from London for the world, relayed via English Bay.
This is the BBC. BBC World Service, welcome to World Briefing. I'm Valerie Sanderson. The headlines at 11 hours GMT.
It's an iced tea.
Ascension has one dental surgery, manned by Johnny Hobson, Finn's new master. Originally from Belfast, he's been living and working on Ascension for nearly 20 years.
Because of the isolation of places like this, you have to be a jack of all trades, maybe a master of none. I don't do a lot of anything, but I do a little bit of everything. So, you've got to have that, even down to fixing people's glasses.
Long before the island was discovered by the Portuguese in 1501, giant green turtles visited, as they still do. These are the ponds which were used for storing live sea turtles, later to be stocked as provisions for long sea voyages. Nature conservationists like Tara George have helped protect the species and ban turtle soup, not only from royal tables. The gentle giants still make the long journey from Brazil every year to lay their eggs.
Ascension is at the stage where everything is in a state of change and things are opening up. So there is a possibility that that you're going to have this conflict between development and conservation as you do elsewhere. So what we're attempting to do at the moment is establish national protected areas, so that the areas that we see as most important are protected. And then, of course, obviously you need development as well.
The waters surrounding Ascension are deep and abound with a wide variety of fish. Shark, wahoo, barracuda, tuna and marlin are all very much at home here. The modern factory ships have not found their way here as yet. It's a sports fisher's paradise. And they come from all over the world. In general, they don't keep their haul. A Galapagos shark, once brought to the surface, is released and thrown back into the sea. Often game fishers only mark their catch in order to monitor movement and changes within the fish stock. Feral donkeys are a common sight on the roadsides of Ascension and are protected by law, as is most of the wildlife, with the exception of wildcats, which pose a serious threat to the bird population. A colony of land crabs can be found living in the undergrowth. They prefer the more humid, subtropical climate of Green Mountain and only leave their habitat to wander down to the sea when it's time to lay their eggs. Green Mountain, rising to a height of 861 metres, dominates the island. It's lush and green at the summit, and always a few degrees cooler than down in Georgetown or in the aerial forest of the moonscape. Johnny Hobson often retires to this tranquil place, and Finn enjoys playing with his newfound friends. Twice a week, a Royal Air Force TriStar lands on Wide Awake Airfield on its way to the Falklands. There's no civilian air traffic on Ascension as yet, but the Royal Air Force supplies a limited number of seats to civilians. The airfield was built by the Americans during the Second World War and was very busy during the Falklands campaign. Nowadays, the stopover is not only used to refuel the plane. Life is very quiet in the South Atlantic.
We sometimes do, I have to admit, with only one grocery shop and a couple of small tourist shops on the island. That's not much for people to go shopping on. So therefore, if you don't have a hobby, such as fishing, sub-aqua diving, you end up just going to the bar, drinking. And you don't have the same travel outlets, people, social circles that you have in Europe.
Good to see there are plenty of supplies on the island. That should last for tonight, at any rate. Here's where the action is, where everyone seems to meet everyone. The Volcano Club on the American military base. Here you can eat, drink and be merry, and feel like being on American soil. This is a cheerful place with a friendly atmosphere, where pounds sterling are accepted as well as St Helena pounds. The change is always in US dollars. And if you prefer a bit more action in your leisure time, you can always make your way to the sunlit Moon Valley Stadium, which is also part of the American base, and watch a game of baseball. Or maybe even join in yourself. The scenery is amazing. Since Ascension is not only a British overseas territory, but also a dependency of St Helena, ultimate authority lies with the governor of St Helena. Andrew Kettlewell is the island's administrator and responsible for the day-to-day running of Ascension. He's on his way to Georgetown to meet the island council. There are many things to talk about. Permission to land civilian aircraft on the military airstrip would be a big boost to the future of the island, opening it up to the outside world. Another issue is the granting of rights of residency to people working on the island, and by doing so create the first proper Ascensionites. Yet another way of passing your time on Ascension. We're told that this golf course made it to the top 10 worst golf courses in the Guinness Book of Records. Doesn't look that bad. It's quite stunning. You can hardly get any closer to playing golf on the moon.
Just check the bookings for the hotel.
The Obsidian Hotel is one of the first private enterprise success stories on the island. Johnny Hobson managed the former Georgetown guest house when it was still owned by the island conglomerate. When it was offered for sale under the new development scheme, Johnny and his business partners put in a bid, which was fortunately accepted. Since then, the supply of Irish whiskey has never been known to run dry at the hotel bar. For us, it's time to move on, heading for new adventures. Next stop, St Helena. A number of passengers are remaining on Ascension. Other passengers join the vessel for the 703 miles to the island. The crew of the RMS refer to this part of the journey as the shuttle service, because it only takes 2 days. Early morning tea is served in the cabins. The BBC World Service keeps passengers and crew up to date with what's going on elsewhere.
This is the BBC.
For tomorrow. ETA pilot.
Captain Martin Smith has taken over the ship and company from his colleague Rodney Young, who's been commanding the RMS for the last 3 months. There's much to discuss and the inevitable gossip to catch up on. No particular surprises, however. Captain Martin Smith has been master of the RMS for over 25 years.
Run over to the run.
While the passengers are happily lazing the hours away, doing a spot of reading or bird watching, or counting the waves, or wondering if they could possibly fit in another meal, the ship's company have a fire drill on their schedule today. It's essential for all vessels to have regular drills, even more so for the RMS, whose call of duty includes some of the loneliest places in the planet. In case of an emergency of any kind, each member of the crew has to know exactly where to be and what to do to ensure the safety of all passengers. Today there's a fire on the bridge. Although it looks quite realistic, there is in fact nothing to worry about. The fire is quickly extinguished. The casualty has been located and rescued. Our arrival at St Helena is imminent. Everyone on board is excited. Crew as well as passengers. This is indeed a wonderful sight for the Saints coming home after their long journey from Britain. The RMS St Helena is very welcome on her island. She brings loved ones back home after holiday abroad, after months or years of work on Ascension, the Falklands or in Britain. And some are coming back after several decades of absence, visiting family and friends, or in fact to retire on their beloved rock. Discovered by the Portuguese in 1502, St Helena became a fortress for the English East India Company in 1659, functioning as a watering hole for sailing ships calling on the way back from India. The first ever settlement, nowadays the capital of St Helena, was given the name of Jamestown in honour of King James II. It has the relaxed atmosphere of a small English market town in the good old times, blended with a generous shot of southern comfort. The Saints are a friendly, open-minded people, happily embracing newcomers, welcoming them in their midst, making them feel at home very quickly. The Consulate Hotel and Bar in the centre of Jamestown is the place for locals and visitors alike to mingle and catch up with what's going on in the outside world. Shopping in Jamestown is very much a social experience. Most of the goods on the shelves have travelled the long way from Britain or South Africa on board the Royal Mail ship. The castle, formerly the fort of the East India Company, is the seat of the St Helena government. A large proportion of islanders is either directly or indirectly employed by the government. Being so far away from Mother Britain can have its disadvantages there.
That is a feeling at times, yes, that we are a bit forgotten here. Yes, it's a long way away, and we don't really have a voice in Parliament. You know, we depend on the few MPs who have visited the island and have taken an interest in the island, but there's no direct influence that we have in London, unfortunately.
But I think you are very loyal to the Crown.
Oh, definitely, yes, yes. We are very British, yes.
His Excellency Governor Hollamby is the 29th representative of the Crown on St Helena. He has the important task of distributing the subsidies the island receives from London every year. He also acts as a conduit, feeding the views and requirements of the island's community back to Britain and vice versa. The relationship between motherland and islanders went through a difficult time when the Saints lost their right to a full British passport in 1981. After 20 years of persistent campaigning, their British citizenship has only recently been fully restored. Whereas in other island communities under similar circumstances, this could have caused a full-blown rebellion. On St Helena, no one lost their sense of humour.
Back to Ascension Island, there were all sorts of rumours afoot that they're quite a gentle people, and you don't hear the sort of troubles you hear in the Caribbean and other overseas territories. No, they're fairly straightforward. You've got to remember they had very harsh colonial masters in the East India Company, so they don't put their heads above the parapet very often.
On occasions, Governor Hollamby and his wife Helena invite the political elite to a reception at Plantation House, the governor's residence. Future projects like the plan to build an airport are discussed, as well as the Royal Mail ship's impending change of route, which intends to include Namibia on her regular schedule. Both projects would make the island more accessible for tourism and would bring the rest of the world closer to the Saints. Plantation House has been the official residence of St Helena's governors for over 200 years and holds much of the island's heritage, as the First Lady is proud to point out to her visitors.
Most of the volumes in the cases are things that wouldn't interest us. There's a lot of legal documents, there are parliamentary records, there are a few dictionaries, and there are ideas fashionable from about 1850 on how the empire could be improved, which, as we well know, since the 1950s and 60s, all that has disappeared, and each country has gone its own route, although they're still part of the Commonwealth. On the left-hand side, you've got the governors that served under the East India Company, and on the right-hand side, you will see those that served with the Crown after 1834, when this island was no longer of any value to the East India Company, and therefore it was handed over to the Crown.
The most recent royal visit to St Helena was Princess Anne. An exceptional testimony to bygone days can be found in the grounds of the residency. Jonathan, the oldest inhabitant of the island, whom some people believe was here before Napoleon arrived. 4 p.m, rush hour in Jamestown. After work, everybody makes their way back home to other settlements on the island. Everybody knows everybody else, and there's a buzz in the air, resembling a family outing. But first, it's time to do a bit of shopping. Weekly vegetable deliveries at Thorpe's supermarket. Although most of the food is imported from the UK and South Africa, some vegetables and fruit are grown on the island. The produce from the local farm has been awaited eagerly. Orders have been placed in advance and are even put together before the fresh cabbages reach the shelves.
You can get potatoes from local growers, not fruit. The quality of the fruit in Cape Town makes it almost not worth our while trying to produce good quality fruit. It's perfect stuff, and fruit has become a kind of, if you like, a treat.
While the usual traffic jam at the end of the working day has taken its grip on Bladder Hill Road, the interior of the island is blissfully quiet and unaware of the bustling in Jamestown down below. A charabanc tour in Colin Corker's 1929 Chevrolet is certainly a highlight of any visit to St Helena, enjoyed not only by tourists. The interior of the 47 square mile island is dazzlingly reminiscent of alpine pastures. This is the Saint's very own Garden of Eden in the middle of the South Atlantic, 1,200 miles west of Angola, 1,800 miles east of Brazil. The Farm Lodge Country House Hotel is a peaceful retreat, secluded in the deep interior of the island. Stephen Biggs, who runs the Farm Lodge together with his St Helenian partner Maureen, used to work as a purser on the Royal Mail ship, but fell in love with the island and came here to stay. He cultivates one of the coffee plantations. Tended lovingly, hand-picked and sorted, St Helenian coffee is much sought after by connoisseurs throughout the world.
It wasn't until we started growing coffee that we realised it's not just a case of picking it off the tree and putting it in the cup. There's a lot more to it than that. The bean apparently is very good, what grows on the trees, but a lot of the quality of the coffee is in the processing after you've picked it. That's what guarantees the quality of the coffee. You can't make it any better than what is on the tree, but you can lose a lot of that quality if it's not processed properly.
This variety of Yemeni coffee was first introduced to St Helena in the 18th century. Due to the remoteness of the island and the resulting absence of cross-pollination, this coffee still maintains the pureness of flavour, which had already been so enjoyed by Napoleon during his years of exile here. The focus on quality in the processing, rather than quantity, ensures its unique flavour, making it a rare and expensive commodity on the world markets. New Zealand flax, yet another plant introduced to the island, provided St Helena with its only real economic success. After St Helenian hemp had been used for many years to tie royal mail bags, it was replaced with nylon string, with severe economic and ecological consequences for the island. New Zealand flax has now, however, overrun the place, depriving the rest of the vegetation of essential water supplies. On Diane's Peak, the highest elevation on the island, nature conservationist Vincent Williams and his team have taken on the mission of saving the natural habitat.
To eradicate the flags in key areas around the peaks, actually, would probably about approximately 20 years at least. But that is only key areas. I don't think we would want to destroy all the flags, but we do want to get areas where tourists would travel with the back to its natural habitat.
The promotion of tourism could solve some of the island's problems. The proposed construction of an airfield at nearby Prosperous Bay is greeted with cautious optimism. "70% of the islanders voted in favour of the airport project. It'll bring them closer to their loved ones in other parts of the world, open up new business opportunities, and could be crucial in providing swift and vital assistance in the case of medical emergencies." Longwood House, Napoleon Bonaparte's residence on St Helena after he was exiled here by the British in 1815.
Alors là, vous entrez dans la pièce la plus qui fait que cette maison est connue.
French consul Michel Martineau frequently receives groups of Napoleonic enthusiasts who make the long journey here to visit l'Empereur's final dwelling place until his death in 1821. Longwood House is an unusual French enclave on the predominantly British dependency of St Helena. St Helena, a fascinating place with many sides to it, and the saints appreciate their island in the sun. It's the early bird who catches the worm, or in this case the fish, as Peter Benjamin knows all too well. The sale of fishing licenses to Japanese vessels and the export of various types of fish to Europe and the Far East are two of the few profitable enterprises on this island. Yellowfin tuna is in season, and Peter Benjamin doesn't have to wait too long for his first catch of the day. There is still an abundance of fish in the waters surrounding St Helena. The local fishermen take great care to keep it that way, using fishing rods instead of nets, which prevents whole shoals containing several generations of fish being caught in one haul, and is dolphin friendly. Although the fishermen are aware that they must compete against the dolphins for their daily haul, these waters remain a haven. It's an exhilarating experience to observe schools of these charming creatures playfully accompanying the boat. The RMS St Helena is ready to continue her long journey southwards. All the cargo has been discharged, and as only a few containers remain on board, the foredeck is free once again for playing deck tennis. It's a melancholy farewell, especially for those saints who are leaving their island in order to earn a living elsewhere, hoping to be able to return someday in the future perhaps. Since there are not enough well-paid jobs on the island, the population has declined steadily from 5,000 to 3,800 over the last 2 years, a severe challenge for the island's social structure. Built in 1989, the RMS St Helena is a very special ship, tailor-made to provide a vital lifeline for the islanders. With her 6,800 tons and a capacity to carry up to 128 passengers, she's easily dwarfed by cruise liners like the QE2. But here all on board, passengers and crew alike are treated as one large family for the duration of the voyage, and are cordially invited by Captain Smith to take part in a game of deck tennis. Our next stop is Tristan Da Cunha. The weather forecast is not good.
The weather controls everything, and even their houses have flags planted around them to act as windbreaks. I mean, to what they regard as a windy day, to the average Englishman or German, it would be the end of the world with this great storm of wind. Well, the Tristanians just carry on and do a day's work in there.
In this isolated part of the world, vessels which could offer their assistance in the case of an emergency are few and far between. So the RMS has been fitted with 2 identical engines and a sufficient number of the required spare parts. We're now approaching the roaring 40s, and after a 5-day journey without sight of land, Tristan emerges slowly and majestically from behind a thick cloak of mist and cloud. It must have been an impressive sight that presented itself to the Portuguese admiral Tristan Da Cunha, who in 1506 came across this volcanic cone in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean, halfway between Cape Town and Montevideo. The nearest settlement is Jamestown on St Helena, some 1,300 miles to the northeast. It's not always possible to disembark at Tristan due to the frequently adverse weather conditions. Today there's a swell of approximately 3 metres. No real challenge for the Tristanians who've come to receive their visitors. His Excellency Governor Hollenby is on board, preparing to pay his yearly visit to Tristan, a dependency of St Helena since 1938. Governor Hollenby has the honour of being the first to descend the Jacob's Ladder under the expert guidance of the islanders. Considered even more important than the governor is the island's mail. Tristan Da Cunha, South Atlantic Ocean. A wonderful and surely the most remote postal address imaginable. The RMS St Helena delivers Royal Mail once a year, in January, the Tristanian summer. Although there are other vessels calling at Tristan on a regular basis, the arrival of a ship, and in particular mail, is always a special event. Unloading is always a tricky business. After the governor and his party of official visitors, those other intrepid passengers, keen to visit this magical island set in the middle of the vast South Atlantic, make the hazardous descent of the pilot's ladder to the boat. These disembarking procedures can be something of an ordeal to the ordinary visitor. For the islanders, it's just part of everyday life. Living in such an isolated and close-knit community, the people of Tristan, approximately 274 in total, have developed a self-sufficiency not often found elsewhere, and of which they're rightly proud. Edinburgh of the Seven Seas is the only settlement on the island. A strip of land dominated by the steep slopes of the extinct volcano, which rose from the depths of the ocean along the mid-Atlantic ridge thousands of centuries ago. On the 10th of October 1961, the mountain had a nasty surprise in store for the people of the island. The ground started trembling The volcano that had been dormant for so long awoke violently. The islanders radioed SOS, gathered a few supplies and left the only home they'd ever known by longboat. They took refuge on the neighbouring island of Nightingale, from where they were rescued by a Dutch liner and eventually evacuated to England. After 18 months, the volcano was still radiating heat, but no longer considered to be active, and the overwhelming majority of Tristanians opted to return to their beloved home in the South Atlantic as soon as it was safe to do so. The volcano years, as the islanders refer to their time in Britain, have had a lasting effect on Tristan, with the introduction of electricity, the import of refrigerators and freezers, tractors and cars, and the construction of roads, changing to a certain extent everyday life on the island. However, community spirit among the islanders remains strong. The RMS is leaving her anchorage, trying to find shelter elsewhere. The weather has deteriorated without warning. The potato patches lie deserted whilst the islanders see to the comfort of their visitors until the unfavourable weather has passed. It's not unusual here to have 4 seasons within the space of one day. In May 2001, the island experienced its worst hurricane disaster. Severe damage was caused and all lines of communication to the outside world were cut off. However, after a few days of hard pulling together, most of the damage was repaired. Pulling together is what being on Tristan is all about. Liberty and equality have been important cornerstones of life on the island since the first permanent settlement in 1816. Every family owns their own house, a potato patch, and a maximum of 2 cows and 7 sheep are permitted due to the limited grazing land available. Each and every person contributes towards the welfare of the island as a whole. The Tristan community is largely self-sufficient. Apart from the sale of postage stamps, which are widely sought after by philatelists throughout the world, the export of the Tristan rock lobster, predominantly to the Far East, is the main source of income for the island. The fishing quotas are self-imposed in order to keep stocks healthy, and the local lobster factory provides jobs for many islanders. Additionally, the island granted exclusive offshore fishing concessions to a South African company. Its 2 fishing vessels also provide the islanders with passenger and cargo services to and from Cape Town. Today, the sounding of the island's dawn doesn't announce a fishing day, but the distribution of the mail which has arrived on the RMS in the school hall. There are only 7 family surnames on the island. The ancestors of the island community came from such diverse places as Scotland, South Africa, America, St Helena, the Netherlands, England and Italy. A large number of which were shipwrecked sailors who were weary of the hardships of a seaman's life and married and remained on the island. The descendants are all members of the extended Tristan family.
Becca Rogers. Mr. and Mrs. Harold Green. Sharon Glass. The Alice Morse.
Alice Glass.
Derek Rogers. Dorothy Rogers. Derek Rogers. Jessica.
In the vicinity of the school is the old graveyard. Here lies the founding father of the Tristan community, William Glass. He served as corporal with the British garrison sent to Tristan to safeguard Napoleon's exile to St Helena, and when the troops were withdrawn, he obtained permission to stay behind with his family, and in doing so, laid down the foundations for today's settlement.
One of the advantages of living on an island like this is a sense of freedom, a sense of security. children particularly are free to wander as they will without fear. And old people are looked after by their families, and they don't have the fear of just being shut out and forgotten.
Conrad Glass, the island's policeman, is a distant descendant of the first settler. Since there's virtually no crime on the island, one of his tasks is to ensure the safety of Tristan's 4-mile stretch of roads.
When I ask the children for this sort out. This is one of the blind corners because you've got the road leading up to the hospital, vehicle approaching, and you've got a left-hand blind corner here. So you also got dogs roaming free, and we also got people, elderly people walking about. So you're driving in an environment where there's animals, where there's ducks and chickens, also privately owned, which can be wandering across the pathway. So you have to be considerate.
With great dedication to duty, Conrad Glass ensures that all remains quiet on the streets of Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. The islanders produce their own supplies of staple foods, such as potatoes, meat and fish. Other commodities and imported goods can be obtained from the island's supermarket, according to availability. All of the goods in this store, shipped here from South Africa aboard fishing vessels, are desperately needed on the island. The Royal Mail ship only calls once a year, and it's not always possible to discharge her cargo due to adverse weather conditions during her short scheduled stay. The Saint Helena battles on the heavy seas and must once again leave her anchorage to find more sheltered waters. The forecast from the radio station is not optimistic. However, time is of the essence and the post ship must continue her voyage.
The swell is still quite big here. It's still running through quite heavy. They'll possibly give you a call at 1 o'clock to assess the situation this side, over.
Yes, Roger. Well, we're just steaming up and down to the east of the island a mile long, so we're never more than half an hour away from the anchorage.
Luckily, the storm subsides for a short time in the late afternoon, and the Tristanians decide amongst themselves to take a chance on reboarding the vessel. For the last time, the Governor of St Helena and Dependencies will leave Tristan Da Cunha aboard the Royal Mail ship. His visit on the island was not only social. He also had to announce that for the foreseeable future, the RMS will no longer call at Tristan Da Cunha. The islanders took this announcement with great composure, owing to the fact that the RMS is not their only lifeline to the outer world, but it certainly means the severing of a long-standing link with the motherland. The RMS's future schedule will instead include 2 stops in Namibia. It is, though, a sad leaving. Back on board the RMS, life now appears quite glamorous. The captain's cocktail party causes quite a stir. Certainly something of a contrast to the slower pace of life on Tristan.
The wheel is on a red number. A red number and it's
After sundown, the guests gather in the casino, where the captain now takes on the role of croupier.
Just a wee word, 35.
Stakes are high. Placing bets of 10p a time, everyone enjoys this harmless bit of fun, where all the proceeds of the evening go to seafaring charities.
7 or 17?
Lovely. Below one, I would go for it. I would go. Yeah. Oh, another pair of red line, live lovely. Right, here we go. Congratulations. An ace, and a 5.
Walvis Bay is Namibia's largest commercial port. When Namibia achieved independence as late as 1990, Walvis Bay, the only deep-sea harbour on the Namibian coast, remained under South African rule and was only handed back to Namibia in 1994. On her first call at Walvis Bay, the RMS St Helena has no cargo requiring discharge. This is essentially only a social visit. Andrew Weir Shipping Limited, the shipping agency which manages the RMS on behalf of the government of St Helena, hope that eventually the calls at Walvis Bay and Luderitz further along the coast will prove an attractive stopover or holiday destination for the Saints, and will appeal to international tourists who now have the option of combining a photo safari in Namibia with a mini-cruise to St Helena. The special attraction of Walvis Bay is the huge natural lagoon, with its overwhelming abundance of seabirds. Over 120,000 birds were recently counted in the lagoon, including innumerable flamingos and pelicans. They're joined every year by 200,000 migratory birds. It's the perfect place for a spot of bird watching. Goods arriving at the international port of Walvis Bay are carried through the Namib Desert to nearby Swakopmund and further on inland. Swakopmund was founded in 1892 during the period of German colonial rule in Namibia. Several coffee shops sell traditional German cakes and pastries. Street names are reminders of the former colonial rulers and administrators, with German still widely spoken. Architecture from a bygone era recalls an earlier chapter in the history of this coastal town on the desert. The Namib, the oldest desert in the world, stretching along the whole west coast of Namibia. With its expansive sand plains and vast dunes, it's a landscape of amazing beauty. After her long tour of duty from Great Britain to Ascension Island, St Helena and Tristan, and her first short excursion to Namibia, the RMS approaches Cape Town. Many Saints come here for a well-earned holiday, or to take advantage of the unlimited shopping facilities and enjoy the magnificent scenery. Cape Town will be the new home port of the RMS, from where she will make the round trip via Luderitz and Walvis Bay to St Helena and Ascension Island and back again. The whole trip, taking 23 days, will increase the number and regularity of her calls at St Helena. Only time will tell if the islanders of St Helena, Ascension and Tristan will benefit from the RMS's new schedule, and whether as a result the Royal Mail ship itself can also become more enterprising and less reliant on state subsidies for its existence. After 2 years of continual service in the South Atlantic Ocean, the RMS requires a complete overhaul and a coat of fresh paint. Both engines are stripped down, cleaned, reassembled and vigorously tested. The interior of the vessel is brought back into tip-top condition in preparation for the demands of the next voyage. Barnacles and sundry forms of marine life which attach themselves to the hull of the vessel have to be removed. Ship's company work in shifts round the clock. They look forward to a precious night off duty when they're able to meet friends and do some shopping or take pleasure in Cape Town's nightlife in the bars and clubs along the waterfront.
Yes, which number are you? 3.
The captain spends his day off duty somewhere quite different altogether. This evening, the bell ringers assemble at St George's Cathedral in Cape Town for rehearsals. Captain Martin Smith is himself an accomplished bell ringer in his native England, and during his twice-yearly 3-month tour of duty on the RMS, he always tries to take part in the bell ringers practice session on Tuesdays, whenever the RMS is in Cape Town. After 2 weeks of hard work, a spanking new RMS St Helena is ready to leave dry dock to head for new adventures in the South Atlantic Ocean. Full steam ahead for St Helena.